Brilliant. Hi, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I'm hoping everyone can hear me. My name is Gabby Hart. I'm the Cases Product Manager here at Emerald Publishing. My colleague Disha is on the webinar as well this morning to kind of manage all the technical things. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. We're just waiting for our main speaker to join, but I'm going to talk through kind of a bit of an introduction to Emerald and to the webinar today, so I'll get started on that. So can I have the next slide, please, Disha? Thank you. So just a little bit of housekeeping for the webinar this morning. There should be a little orange arrow on the box on your screen. If you open that, you can access your control panel for the webinar today. You'll be able to change the audio options, either joining with computer audio or via a phone call. All attendees are muted today, so we'll manage any questions or comments that you've got in the questions box. So that should be a little drop down for you, as shown on the screen there. Any questions, please do type them in throughout the session. We'll have a dedicated Q&A time at the end of the session. But if you've got questions kind of as we go and it's appropriate within the session, I'll kind of raise them as we go. This is a practical workshop, so please feel free to send in all the questions, comments, and as I said, we'll get them either during the webinar or in the Q&A session at the end. If there is anything we can't answer on the webinar, I will try and make sure that we find out the answer and get back to you afterwards. And just to note that the presentation is going to be recorded, so you will receive an email with these slides and the video recording as well. Yeah, next slide, please. Thank you. Yeah, so just the agenda today then. So I'm going to introduce, talk a little bit about Emerald and our case study publications and the partnerships, and then talk about the African Middle East case competition that you're kind of here to hear a little bit about. And then I will pass over to our main speaker today, Dr. Farzana Quoquab Habib. She is an associate editor at the Emerging Markets Case Studies collection. So she's kind of best placed really to talk you through what kind of editors' expectations are in terms of your case study and teaching note submission. And then at the end, we will have a dedicated time for any questions and answers session as well. Brilliant. So the next slide, please. Thank you. So yeah, so as I said briefly earlier on, my name is Gabby Hart. In the final slide, my email address is on there, so you've got my contact details. As I said, they'll be emailed out after the session. I also want to mention my colleague Melissa Close, who isn't able to be on the call today. Melissa is the cases commissioning lead. Her details are also on the final slide. So if you do have any questions after the webinar today, please do reach out to myself or Melissa, and we'll make sure that you know, any queries that you have or if you're interested in working with us in any different ways, please do reach out, and we'll make sure we point you in the right direction. And then I also wanted to mention as well, so the competition that we're going to talk about a little bit today, the Africa and Middle East case competition. Emerald Publishing are really pleased to be running this with our partners at the Al Qazinda Business Research Center at the American University in Cairo. So I'd just like to thank our colleagues at KCC, specifically NG Magdi and Shireen Al-Bawati. Again, I don't think either of those are able to be on the call today, but thank you to KCC for supporting our case competition. And then the next slide, please. Thank you. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our Emerald's case studies collections, and then in a second I'll talk specifically about our emerging markets case studies collection. So we at Emerald, we publish, we have over nearly 3,000 case studies published across all kind of aspects of business management. We publish high quality teaching cases covering real world challenges to support and inspire future business leaders. So really to link between theory and practice and make sure that students have you know, the kind of experience and theoretical knowledge that they need during their studies to go into business environments, really feel kind of fully prepared as much as possible for any challenges that they face. So we have a number of different case study collections, subscription and purchase offers that are really essential programs for libraries to empower future change makers, you know, the students at business schools, and support their faculty to teach their students, the appropriate learning objectives. And as I said, they cover a broad scope of subjects across the business management discipline in key areas including gender, diversity, inclusion, sustainable environment. So again, if you're interested in finding out a little bit more about how to access any of our case studies or potentially setting up a trial for your institution, if you don't already have access, as I said, my email address is on the final slide, so please do reach out after the session if that's something you're interested in at all. Yep, then just the next slide, please. So the Emerging Markets Case Studies collection, this is the kind of key collection that we're going to be talking about today, and Dr. Farzana is the Associate Editor of. So the Emerging Markets Case Studies collection, or EMCS as we call it, is a scopus ranked collection of teaching cases that offer students the opportunity to explore real-world challenges in the classroom environment. So we accept submissions to EMCS throughout the entire year. We'll talk in a minute about the Middle East and Africa case competition. If those deadlines or the scope of that competition don't work with you, do know that you can submit to EMCS across the year at any point. You can submit a case study in kind of any area of business management, so finance, marketing, tourism, hospitality, entrepreneurship, strategy, everything within kind of business management. We do accept case studies based on primary or secondary data. We do encourage, where possible, authors conduct primary research. We find this is more engaging for students, but we do accept cases based on secondary data as well. Cases need to be based on real life situations, and we don't accept fictional cases. So they need to be about real people in real organisations facing real life management dilemmas. We accept compact and traditional length cases. So traditional length cases up to about 7,000 words, and compact cases anywhere between kind of 1 and 3,000. So in terms of the length of the case study, we're really quite flexible on that. And any cases submitted need to, they can't be submitted or published elsewhere. And we offer, so as I mentioned, the EMCS collection is a Scopus Index, which we're really proud of here at Emerald. All cases submitted go through a double-blind peer review process, and our editors really work with our authors to kind of support with revisions where required. We pay our authors £100 sterling or equivalent currency upon publication of a case study. We have competitive acceptance rates, but as I said, at the same time, our editors really do work with the authors who submit to us to kind of support with the revision processes where required. And we aim to have a first decision within 90 days. Again, I've said these slides will be emailed to you. There's a link to the author guidelines there. Okay, next slide, please. So to talk a little bit about the Africa and Middle East Emerald case writing competition in particular. So this competition has a deadline of the 30th of September, and in order to be considered for this competition, the case study itself needs to be based in either Africa, the Middle East, Turkey, and Pakistan, and one of the authors has to be based at an academic institution in these regions. So we want to support both authors from these regions and promote output, case output based in these regions. So both of those things need to be true to be eligible for this competition. If, for example, you don't have an author based in this region, but your case study is based within, let's say, the Middle East, you wouldn't be eligible to submit to the competition, but you would be eligible to submit to EMCS, kind of is a standard regular submission. So all case studies submitted to the competition need to meet our standard EMCS guidelines. So all cases submitted are considered for publication in EMCS, as well as being considered as part of the competition. And as I said as well, all the cases need to be based on a real situation and a real company. So again, we don't accept fictional cases. And you can submit a compact or a full-length case study as part of the competition. The prize fund is $2,000 in total, so $1,000 for the first prize, and then $500 for the second and third place. So as I said, the deadline is 30th of September, and all cases will be considered for publication in EMCS. So it's possible, even if your case study isn't first, second, or third, you will still go through that review process, potentially being given a accept or revision decision, and go on to be published in EMCS, depending on the peer review. And then just to note, the judging process can take up to 2 months, so it is a little bit longer than our standard, just regular kind of submission process. And then the next slide, please. I just wanted to highlight quickly as well a kind of separate competition that we're running as well. I know there are a lot of people on the webinar today, very much from around the world. So if you are interested in submitting to EMCS, but you're not, maybe don't have a case study ready in time for September, or you don't meet those requirements for the Africa and Middle East competition, this might be of interest to you. So this is a competition that we run in partnership with the NDI Gurgaon, the Management Development Institute in India. So similar to the other competition, this case study competition, the aims are to support case authors based in Africa and case writing based, in India, and support case writing based in India. So again, to submit to this one of the authors needs to be based at a business school within India, and the case study itself needs to be based in India. As before, all of the same requirements. They need to meet standard EMCS guidelines, have a developing and emerging markets focus from within the region, need to be based on a real situation in a real company. You can submit either compact or full-length case studies. The prize fund is the same as well, so $1,000 for the winner and $500 for the second and third place cases. And then the submission deadline is a little later in the year, 30th of November. And again, any case studies submitted to that will go on to be considered for publication in EMCS. So again, you might not win the competition, but potentially go through that peer review process and go on to get published in EMCS. And I mean, next slide, please. So these are a number of resources that I wanted to share with you. So on here, we've got a guide on how to write teaching cases. This is an online document that we have that is a really helpful guide for you to help you kind of work through every step of the case writing process. And as part of that, there's also a section on how to write a teaching note. So I should have mentioned as well when I said that all of the case studies for EMCS and these competitions need to meet our requirements. They do all need to have a teaching note as well. So our case writing guides, all of these resources also refer to teaching notes quite heavily. So we've got the case writing guide. We have the Emerald Cases Hub. This is a free online resource. Anyone can access. You just need to go in and create an account. And this website was developed by Emerald with a lot of support from our editors. So there are a lot of videos and kind of multimedia interactive modules talking you through how to write the case study and the teaching note. It also talks you through the revision process, you know, how to respond to reviewers' comments and getting ready to actually publish the case study. We've also got a book on writing compact cases, there's links to there as well. And then, as I said as well, there's a link to browse our case studies on our website, Emerald Insight. If you don't have access through your institution to our case studies, and that's something that you'd be interested in, as I said, please do reach out to me, and my email address is on that slide. And then my colleague Melissa Close is the cases commissioning lead. She will be more than happy to answer any questions as well. So if you want to reach out to either of us after this, please do, and we'll be able to answer any questions. So Disha, is our guest speaker online just yet?
Sorry, Gabby, not yet. And so maybe we'll have to take over the session because she hasn't joined us yet.
Okay, that's absolutely fine. All right, bear with me. Just 1 second. And sorry to everyone on the call. It seems that our guest speaker is clearly having some issues joining today. I can only apologise for that. Bear with me, and I'm just going to get some slides up, which I put together with a lot of help from our editors at the Emerging Markets Case Studies collection. So I've kind of got some slides talking through the case writing and teaching writing process, and the kind of key feedback that our editors give our authors. So I'll just talk through that today. And as I said, I'm sorry that that you've got me today instead. So bear with me 1 second. Let me just see if I can share my slides here. Screen.
Do you want to share the slides with me, Gabby? Maybe I can share them. If you can drop them in Teams or just email them to me, I can get them up for you.
Yeah, okay, bear with me just 1 second.
Sure, sure. I think our speaker today, there has been some miscommunication of time. I think that's the reason she's not been able to join.
Okay, brilliant. I've just sent them over to you, Disha. Thank you for this.
No problem at all.
And thank you everyone for your patience. It's a little bit of background for me, seeing as I'm going to be speaking a little bit more today. So I've been at Emerald for 6 years now, and I've worked on our case study portfolio for that entire time. So I was, as I said, Melissa Close is the cases commissioning lead. I was the cases commissioning lead for nearly 3 years. So I have worked very closely on our case study publications and with our editorial board. And as I said, these slides that Disha will share in just a second have been put together with the help of a number of different editors and associate editors across a number of our different journals. And I'll talk through some of the feedback that they give us and say, you know, these are the kind of things that they, the feedback they give to authors time and time again, you know, the kind of key themes that they see when they're reviewing submissions to our case study collections, and kind of key takeaways that, you know, when we're running webinars and sessions like this, the kind of key areas that our editors really do want us to stress to potential authors. But I would mention as well, once these slides are emailed over to you, the Emerald Cases Hub really is a fantastic resource. Like I said, that's free to access, and you can work through the modules that are relevant to you. So if you're newer to case writing, maybe start at the very beginning, you know, how do you decide on the topic and how do you work with an organisation? And if you're a little bit more experienced, maybe, for example, you're a bit more comfortable with writing the case study, but the teaching note is somewhere that you feel you could spend a bit more time, you can just choose to work through the modules on writing a teaching note, for example. And the content there is kind of presented by our editors themselves, and it really is it's really very engaging, kind of different bits of
Gabby,
content. Yeah.
I'm so sorry to interrupt you, but Dr. Farzana has joined us, and I can see that she's trying to come online. I can see her name. I think she had a little bit of confusion about the time, but thankfully she is on and she's trying to join. So I think we should be able to get on, and I think you should introduce her by the time she's able to set herself up.
Brilliant. Thank you, Disha. Brilliant. I'm so glad that you've been able to join. In that case, then, I will introduce your speaker, Dr. Farzana Quoquab, as she's trying to join. So as I said, she is an associate editor with the Emerging Markets Case Studies collection, so really is kind of the best person to be able to speak to you about the kind of submission requirements. So Dr. Farzana Quoquab is a prolific case writer and published in a number of internationally reputed case journals, including the Asian Case Research Journal, the Asian Journal of Management Cases, and of course the Emerging Markets Case Studies collection. She's also edited 2 case books, which are also published by Emerald Publishing. She has secured many research grants, including the Case Writing Grant Scheme. She's won several awards, including the Emerald Literati Award for Outstanding Reviewer. She's won that 2 years in a row. The Excellent Service Award, the Faculty Award for Research, and Highly Commended Award, and a Special Award for Case Writing. As I said, she's currently serving as an associate editor of the EMCS collection and serves on a number of editorial boards for other case study publications. So I'm hoping, is she online now?
She was, but she's gone offline again, so I think she's going to try and join in again.
Okay, well, thank you again so much, everyone, for your patience with this.
Yeah, we're so sorry for the delay, but I think she's trying to join in. She was, I could see her webcam was on, she was available. So she's just saying, give me 2 minutes, I'm coming on.
Yeah. Are there any, I just wonder if there are any questions in the chat, just whilst we're doing this.
Yes, yes.
Someone's asked if we've got a template. Yes.
Sorry, carry on.
So I just thought I'd ask any questions in the chat whilst we're doing this. So someone has asked if there is a template for writing case studies. So there is. So actually, if you look at the first link there on how to write a teaching case guide, there is actually a template that the previous editor of the EMCS collection actually drafted themselves. It's a really great template. So it talks you through kind of every section that is required of both the case study and the teaching note. So kind of the introduction to the organisation, the dilemma, the case study, and then the teaching note itself. So yeah, that'll be linked there. Brilliant. Dr. Quoquab, can you hear and see us okay?
Hello, hi.
Hi, good morning.
Hi, Dr. Farzana.
Hi, you can hear me, right?
Yes.
Okay, fine. I'm so sorry, I think I'm a bit late.
That's absolutely fine. Sorry, I've just I've talked a little bit about Emerald's case studies in the emerging market case studies collection in EKQs. I'm so glad you're able to join. Sorry for any confusion. So I'll pass over to you now. If I think you're sharing your slides.
Okay, you want me to share my slides now?
Yes, please.
Thank you, and I'll pass over to you. Thank you again, everyone, for your patience.
If you can see, can you just tell me, is it now you can see it?
Yes, ma'am. Yes. All up and running, all good.
Right. If any issue, please let me know, okay? In between, if it is not moving suddenly or something, just let me know. Okay. So thank you very much for EMCS and the Emerald team for having me here today to discuss and share my own understanding and my journey and my experience being the associate editor of EMCS, being the reviewer of many case journals, and also being the writers of cases. So I'm actually working at AHIPS International Azman Hashim International Business School, UTM, Kuala Lumpur. I'm also associate editor of EMCS. And I am with EMCS since 2018. And I'm also a member of some case writer association. One of them is NACRA, I think, who are working on cases. They might know about it, that North American Case Writer Association. This is one of the quite famous case writer association. Well, without further ado, I want to share my today's topic. So I know that this is actually about organized for case competition, and therefore it is very important for the case writers to understand the essentials of writing the case study. Case writing is a little bit of different than writing the research papers. So therefore it is not everybody's cup of tea. So therefore, I'm going to share some tips and tricks about writing the teaching case. Before I start the tips and tricks, I need to again a little bit of share what is actually teaching case. Teaching case actually we use as the pedagogical tool in the classroom to teach in a particular topic, and it has some teaching values. So teaching value meaning when we teach this case, it is like a story, but this story actually comes with lots of facts and information. It is not only a story without any facts. Simultaneously, it has two parts. One is the writing the story part, another is the guide, that is we call teaching guide. So teaching value actually depends on both aspect. One is case narrative, another is the teaching guide. So therefore, it is very crucial for us to understand the role of case narrative and the role of the teaching guide. So when you're talking about research case, so this is a little bit different than teaching case. So research case, this is actually a method. That method we use to collect the data and come up to the conclusion based on that data analysis. Whereas the teaching case, this is actually telling about one particular maybe a story about one particular protagonist or particular company, their journey, their problem, their dilemma, and about the how it is related to that particular topic that can be used in the classroom setting. Teaching case, it actually, there's no particular right one right answer. There can be many answers. Therefore, when we write the teaching case and the teaching note, we cannot actually lead the discussion that this is the only one solution. We need to understand that we use this teaching case as the pedagogical tool, and we use it for the adult learning. So adults, we know that adults, they learn by debating, by understanding the things based on the practical situations. Theory itself cannot give the proper idea to the adult learners. So therefore we use the teaching case, and this teaching case is actually true story that maybe one particular manager somewhere in Nigeria, somewhere in Uganda, somewhere in other country, they faced it and how they solved it. When we teach one particular theory or particular topic, it is very idealistic kind of thing. But we also need to understand that life doesn't follow the ideal pattern. It also have lot of troubles, lots of ups and downs. So how the particular manager, that problem was solved by that particular manager. So that is the thing basically we share with our adults in the classroom using the teaching case. Okay, so when we see teaching case and research case, so we can see that there are a lot of differences, and those differences very apparent. For example, this is one research case, and it has a lot of like citations, lot of, you know, the academic writing style. On the other hand, when we are writing about teaching case, it doesn't follow exactly academic writing style, it follows the storytelling style. But this storytelling is not beyond of some rules and regulations. It has some rules and regulations. Well, so when we see both examples, then we can see that one is starting with academic, you know, terminologies and citations. Another is starting with a storytelling style. So never mind, we move on. So there are, when you're talking about writing teaching case, there are a lot of school of thoughts. I think this is very common in any academic discipline that we have different school of thoughts. However, there are some common ground. So those common grounds, no matter what journal you're submitting, no matter what association you belong to, so there are some common rules. That common rules should be everywhere, wherever we're talking about writing a teaching case. So today particularly, I'm going to share with my experience and the school of thought we follow for the EMCS. Well, so when you're talking about writing a teaching case, then we have few things to understand. First thing is that decision focus. So when you're writing a teaching case, it has to be decision focused. We also have different kind of cases, like we have descriptive case, but descriptive cases are basically has lack of or lower level of teaching value. Why so? When you're talking about one particular things happen already and there's not much to ponder, not much to have the dilemma to understand what I supposed to do on that time if I'm the protagonist. So descriptive is basically telling us about what already happened, how the problem was solved, or some success story or some failure story. But when you're talking about decision focused case, then that whole case story narrative is centered to solving a particular problem, particular decision making dilemma. So this is the basically journal articles, case journals basically they're looking for. So if you're targeting any good journals, then you must actually try to prepare your case for decision focused case rather than descriptive case. And this decision making dilemma has to deliver in such a way that it should be interesting to the reader. Let's say now it is 2024 and we are writing about 1994, what happened, one problem. That's maybe not so much, latest, so much relevant. It is outdated, so the readers might not find it appealing. So it is important to have more recent years problems. Second thing is that how we are delivering this decision-making dilemma, what kind of problem we are actually focusing. So that is also important. So let me show you one example here. Just one second. Okay. So if sometimes when I'm reviewing case or sometimes when I'm reading the other reviewers writing, then we can see that the writers, they bring dilemma. Those are not really decision focused problem. For example, if someone is saying that I have 3 branches, let's say the company XYZ, it has 3 branches and now they want to open 4th branch. But they are not telling that this 4th branch opening is related to some problem, related to some dilemma, that if I want to open that 4th branch, what kind of problem I'm going to face, for example. If there is no dilemma, there's no problem, then this is not a particular situation that the readers will be interested to. Because the issue is everybody actually from the beginning, they have ambition to grow. But it become a dilemma when there is some problem, but still the growth is important. And within that problem, within that situation, how the company can be actually prosper. So those are the things we have to understand, that how we are delivering that decision-making dilemma. Create a volatile situation. That's also important. If I say that everything flowery, everything good, the company is making a lot of profit, the company is doing good, everybody know about that brand, and they want to open a 4th shop. It's not a big deal actually. But if I say that it was a pandemic, it was very difficult time, inflation was high, people are not buying much, but still they have to find a way to grow. So that can be a problem. Second thing is important, that when you're delivering the message, the information to the reader, then we should not actually lead the solution. We should give proper facts and figures and the information to the readers so that they will use their own mind, own thought, own brain, and then they will come up with a solution. So what our purpose is there, we have to just give them ample information, ample evidences, so the reader will have their own opinion, own thought to decide which way they want to go. So that makes the case interesting. So there is one simple example taken from a long time before. I was reviewing one case. So this case about Tesla. And it was about the Elon Musk, and he was thinking what, and then Model 3. And so this is some sort of just descriptive case study. So I just want to show you what the reviewers commented. The reviewers said that looks like an essay rather than a teaching case. And the reviewers said there is no dilemma, no decision maker, and no particular problem to solve. And also, reader mentioned this is basically developed based on the secondary data. So if it is not primary data, the case might be less interesting. So of course, there are a lot of cases based on secondary data, but the cases that are based on secondary data, you should have available information. If you have a limited information and you want to rely on secondary data, those kind of cases very hard to pull actually. So just to share with you, the decision-making dilemma is very, very important. The second thing is having a protagonist. So protagonist is the person who is facing the problem and thinking that he or she must do something. So this protagonist, we need to tell the readers at the beginning. Some people, they call it opening hook, some say opening gambit, some say opening paragraph. So whatever it is, so when we are introducing the case, and particularly it is the first 1 or 2 paragraph, then we need to mention about the protagonist. So sometimes I understand that some company, they do not allow us to actually, maybe when we are getting the information, they allow us to write a case, but they do not allow us to mention the protagonist's original name. We can disguise protagonist name, but there is important to have a protagonist, because the readers will perceive the whole situation based on the protagonist's eyes. So therefore we need to give also information of the protagonist. So it depends also based on what kind of case we are writing. So some cases we need to have a lot of information about protagonist. Some cases maybe we need less information about the protagonist, but we need some information. Now the magnitude will differ. So what kind of simple information we need? For example, the person name, the age, the race. If the country has some lot of races, like Malaysia, there are in Chinese, Indian, Malay. So it is very important to tell the reader first that what race the protagonist belong to. And then of course it depends on necessity. So some case we need more. Let's say if it is a leadership, the case about leadership, then we need to know more about the protagonist, about his or her past experience of the job, how or she or he led the company or led the any particular situation or particular position. And also you need to know a little bit about education background, because if a leader without having proper education background and a leader with having a very good education background, it might be different for the taking any steps or action. So the key here, we need to introduce the protagonist to the reader, and the information we need to deliver, that can be less, that can be more, based on the necessity of the case. Opening hook. So this is something I see that most of the writers, they actually overlook. It is very important. It's like looking at the human being first time, looking at the persons and how the image is created by seeing his or her, the dress up, the hairstyle, the facial expressions. It is similar for the case. So this actually create the impression to the reader's mind, and the first reader is reviewer and the editors. So opening hook, there are some key. So this is a story, but how we deliver, there are some rules and regulation. So what are the things? It is not only me who know that, NACRA, who are member of NACRA, also know that it is very important to answer some WH question. So number one question, what? What meaning? What is the problem? So we need to answer to the, or explain to the case, that what is the problem that protagonist and the company facing. Second is where. Where meaning, is it in India? Is it in Pakistan? Is it in Turkey? Is it in Malaysia? So we need to tell where. And if there are a lot of state, we also need to mention which state, because we know that though it is within the same country, but different state has different, a little bit though, different cultural style. For example, what I'm taking in the lunch, what I'm taking in the breakfast, how I'm talking, the slang, the dialect, how I'm wearing my dress, is all actually a little bit of different based on the state. So this is very important. So what, where, who is the protagonist? So meaning to say, who is facing this problem, who have to take the decision. So this is very important. When meaning, there are actually three when. So this when, I also see the case writers and sometimes even some reviewers also overlook. So when is actually so important, that it is giving the reader the flow of the story. So one when is, though I say time, so one time is that when the case is positioned. So case problem position meaning, when the protagonist, let's say the Lily is thinking maybe 2024 January 19 that she have to do something. She's facing some problem and she have to do something. So this is one particular time that it is preferably the case start with this timing. If not at the first sentence, somewhere in the first paragraph. Second when is when the problem initiated. So if Lily is thinking that she has to take some action on 19 January 2024, the problem must have started few years back, few months back, or few days ago. So whatever it is, it will be before when Lily is thinking about that. So it can be depending on the problem. It can be even just occurred maybe a few weeks back, maybe 6 months already, maybe 3 years already, maybe 1 year already. So whatever. And another when is by when the problem has to be solved. That's very important, and many case writers, they miss this part, that by when the problem has to be solved. So when you're writing case, there is a term we call urgency. So this urgency can be created many ways, but we should have urgency. So what is the thing, what does this urgency meaning? This urgency meaning why this problem is so crucial to be solved, why this case problem is so important for us to know, and how crucial it is. If I cannot solve this problem, if the protagonist cannot solve the problem by that particular time, what is the issue? Will that matter? Let's say I'm saying, keep on saying from the beginning that maybe the problem is to opening a fourth shop or fourth retail store. Now, if this fourth shop is not being opened by another maybe 6 months or so, what's the problem? If there is no problem, the company is running well, getting a lot of profit, people still like it, then actually it is not a problem. There is no urgency. But if I say that if they do not launch another branch, then they are going to face maybe problem like sales issue, or maybe branding issue, or maybe image issue or something. So then it is actually making a sense that okay, therefore it is important for that particular company to open a new branch. So these are the things we need to actually nail it in the opening hook or opening paragraph, whatever we say, that what, who, when, where. Well, these are the things actually. Date also similar thing, that we need to give lot of dates when you're writing the case story. Now, having said that, some companies still running. In Malaysia, we have KPJ, a lot of case written about KPJ, a lot of case written about MAS, but still those company operating. So some case writer, they tend to give us lot of information after the case problem is being positioned. But that is the thing, a mistake. We should freeze the case to a certain point of time. So let's say if Lily is thinking that Lily should do something by 19th of January, thinking so, then all date, all information should be freezed by 19th of January, because after 19th of January, that is not something our our interest, that we want to know what happened. And you have to understand that we are creating such a situation that the reader, they will try to figure it out how to solve the problem within that particular time frame. So after that, whatever information we're giving, maybe that is actually going to tell us how the problem was being solved. But our intention is to create the suspense and dilemma and leave it on that time, 19th January 2024, that what Lily is supposed to do. Now the reader will read the case and figure it out how the problem could be solved. So therefore, the date should be freezed on that particular time. We don't need to give aftermath. But if we want to give what happened, yes, we can tell it. We say that epilogue, at the end of the case teaching note, we can say that what happened, how the company or the protagonist solved the problem. Use of tense. Case should be written in past tense. Case will not written in present tense or future tense. So even if it is one day before what happened, it has to be use of past tense. So this is another thing that sometimes we see that writers started to write the case using the past tense. Then some places messed up and then they start writing in present tense. Don't do that. The whole case has to be written in past tense. Okay. This is something that information and the data. So information, the way we provide the information, it is actually, there is no hard and fast rule that all cases should have similar type of information. It always depends on actually the necessity and what kind of story you are going to tell. But the issue is we should give sufficient data and information. And the information, the way we give is actually is related to what we want our reader to solve. So therefore, when we write a case narrative, I will share a little bit later also, we actually need to write the teaching note together, at least certain parts. So when we are writing the case narrative, we know what kind of information the reader will need to solve the problem or to write the answer the teaching case assignment questions. So this is something actually first time writers may not understand, but when you write one case, you go through the revision process, and then second time you're writing, then you can understand better. So case actually very much factual, is very much informative, but we do not write it in a such a way that it will hamper the reader's attention. We all the time try to write in a such a way that it flows nicely. So what information, where we put, it depends on the necessity. For example, it is also related to structure. So some case, it actually might have 7-8 sections. Some cases it might have only 5 sections. However, having said that, this structure is not same as writing a research paper. So research paper, usually we know that the section headings start with introduction, then literature review, methodology, data analysis, then maybe implications, findings, conclusions, and so forth. But when you're writing a case study, it is actually, it doesn't follow the same structure like a research paper. It has a fluid structure. As when you're reading a storybook, so the section headings or the chapter heading, those are very much relevant, related to the story itself. For case also, we have the same style and approach. For example, for this case, when we are writing, then we followed this kind of a structure, and you can see that those are very fluid kind of section heading. It is not starting with introduction, literature review, background, nothing like that. On the other hand, when you're writing the journey of bliss, this case, we follow different structure. So it depends on you as a writer. Nobody can actually, tell you that what should be your structure, but it depends on the writer's, writing style, preference, and the necessity. So you can follow whatever it is, but do not actually follow the research paper writing style. Well, and then another thing is that communication style and language. So since it is I assume that you're going to submit for EMCS or the Emerald Case Competition. This is international platform. So when you're writing cases for international community, international platform, it has to be written in English, and it has to be grammatically checked before you submit. So of course English is not our mother tongue, and therefore what happens is that when you're writing, sometimes it is not explaining well or understanding or what I'm going to represent, what I'm going to deliver. So it is always good if you can send it for proofreading. So then when we read the case as a reviewer or editors, it is very annoying if there are a lot of problems, tense problem, grammatical error, or expressions are not appropriate. So it creates some sort of barrier, and we already feel like as a reviewer, the editors, that the writers didn't pay attention, didn't take it seriously. Okay, so therefore it is all the time important that we go for proofreading before we submit. A strategic alternative, this is something actually optional. This is not compulsory. When you're writing the teaching case, it is good if we can give some alternative options, that let's say Lily is facing this problem. Now Lily can have 2-3 options to go. So if Lily goes for option A, what problem will happen and what benefits she will get. So like pros and cons. Similarly, option B, option C, what are the things she can have pros and cons. So as I said, it is not compulsory, but it is good to have. It creates more tension, more suspense, and more complicacy for the reader to solve the problem. And it also creates more interesting background. Case closing. So case closing, there is something I want to actually say, that I give a lot of talks about case writing by Emerald and also by other organizations. So when I share my cases with, like here I'm sharing also some examples, so I see that the readers, they tend to follow my structure. Is fine if you think if it's suitable. However, this kind of thing, I use some of my cases at the case closing, moving forward, moving ahead, way forward, way to go. So when I review cases, I see lot of writers, they end the case with this kind of section heading. It's very, very it's very strange and weird. Don't do that. If I'm reviewing, let's say 50 cases, and within 50 cases, 20 cases ending the section with moving forward, way to go, is really, really is not good. So try to be creative. I'm pretty sure you'll find different way to end the case, but just do not end the case with this kind of thing, everybody. But do something, have a structure, have a section heading that will be interesting, and that will be like, reading like a story, not like closing per se. Well, so when you're talking about case, as I said, case has two parts. One is case narrative, another is teaching note. So now let's start with the teaching note. So teaching note, there are also people call it teaching manual or teaching guide. So same thing. It is all actually the guide of using that case narrative, that is story. So when you're writing the teaching note, so it has particular component. So if anyone familiar with EMCS website, you already know that these guides also there. So I'm just highlighting it again. So this teaching note, it starts with a synopsis. So synopsis is the a summary of the whole problem, and also this synopsis should have those questions like what, when, who, where. And then after you explain the synopsis, then you should have your learning objective. So now this learning objectives, it's better if you follow Bloom's taxonomy, because that is widely used taxonomy that you are using for our CLO PLO. So this learning objective, you can organize it based on simple to more critical, like Bloom's taxonomy also suggests so. But the key here, this learning objective should be in line with your case assignment question and also the topic you are going to cover in the class. Let's say, for example, you are teaching, you plan to teach something about maybe consumer behavior and or maybe entrepreneurship. Now your teaching objective is not highlighting anything about entrepreneurship, highlighting about something else, then there's something wrong. So when you are preparing your learning objective, case assignment questions, and the topic to cover, you must see whether those three things are in line, and the information given in the case narrative, whether it is also in line with these three things. So as I said, that when you tell the story in the case narrative, this is not out of the rules and regulation. We have some rules and regulation that we use in teaching guide or teaching note. So therefore, to me, my experience tells that if we have this teaching guide, half of it before we start writing the case narrative, then it is more actually easy for us. So let's say if we already know that once we interview the protagonist, we know the case problem, simultaneously if we have in our mind what are the learning objective I'm going to deliver, what are the case assignment questions I'm going to pose, so actually then when you go for interview, second round, third round, that all helps. But what if we start writing the teaching note at the end, after writing the case narrative, then it's very difficult to make a proper alignment. Okay, so after we write the learning objective, then target audience, meaning to say this case you want to use for, is it postgraduate students, for undergraduate, or maybe only for the trainers, or maybe other kind of professionals. We need to mention it. So let's say if your complexities of the case assignment question and the learning objective not so critical, and you are saying you want to teach this case for the postgraduate level, that doesn't make sound, that doesn't make sense. So you have to see the complexities level and also which audience you are targeting. Relevant theory or concept. Theory is not compulsory, but sometimes some rewriters, they maybe focus on RBV, for example, some focus on maybe SOR, so it's fine. But basically we focus concept, like for example you can talk about Porter's 5 force analysis or generic strategies, or sometimes we also other subject we are talking about, then you can relate it with the similar topic that you are thinking that this case will be best to deliver and to teach for this particular topic. Now, sometimes we see that writers, they are too optimistic. They say that this case can be used for entrepreneurship, leadership, and consumer behavior. Maybe the writer is thinking in this way, they are making the case more valuable, but it is completely opposite. You should focus on the topic or the particular subject that you think best fit. You don't need to be too optimistic or over promise. For me, it is over promising. And also, when you're saying that you want to cover these 3 courses, but then your learning objective just focusing on maybe leadership or maybe only the consumer behavior, then what happened to other 2 subjects? So therefore, don't over promise, just deliver what you can deliver. So this is something. So you can just say, okay, this case will be suitable to teach consumer behavior, and the concept, maybe you're talking about those concepts that are relevant to the consumer behavior subject only. So it is more easy then to write the case narrative, give the information that is suitable for those particular concepts. Data collection method, yes, you should have a section heading how you collected the data. Is it based on primary data? Is it based on the secondary data, or is it both? So we need to tell it. And if you say it is a based on primary data, you must give us the consent letter. So consent letter is actually, sometimes some authors, they misunderstand. They write the consent letter, they sign the consent letter by their own. But this is not consent to publish. This consent letter should come from the case company. You are writing the case about company XYZ. So this consent letter should be signed by the company, some authority from that company XYZ. And we have template in the EMCS website. You can just download and you can use that. It's very simple template actually, no complexities at all. Now, teaching plan. This is something that we usually for EMCS, we follow 90 minutes teaching plan. Some other journal might have different, time frame. Some can be just 60 minutes or less, but for EMCS, it is 90 minutes teaching plan. So you need to tell the reader, okay, how you are planning that this case can be used within the 90 minutes of time duration. It depends on how you want to use that. There's no particular frame that everybody can use it, but you must explain how you expect the teachers or the trainer or the instructor will administer this case for that 90 minutes. When we are talking about expert teachers who are maybe more experienced, for them maybe it is not so important, but those instructors who just join early career researchers, or maybe they just started to teach, for them is very valuable guide. So therefore it must be there. Assignment questions, we also need to have particular assignment questions, and this assignment questions should be in line with the learning objective. So the objective you are addressing at the beginning, your questions also should address those learning objectives. If you are telling that 3 learning objective or 5 learning objective, and your case questions are actually responding or addressing 4 out of 5, then it is actually incomplete. So make sure that your learning objective and assignment questions are actually in line. Some more, you have to give the suggested answers, and those answers you cannot just write based on the Google search. This answer should be based on the case narrative. So the information you're given in the case narrative, so we're expecting that the reader should get sufficient information in the case narrative to write those particular answers. Now, if you are using any secondary materials to write the answer, let's say you are highlighting the case facts, simultaneously are bringing some discussions from other literature or academic, maybe articles or some books, then you need to cite them and you need to give the list of reference. So list of reference can be 2 places. One is at the end of the case narrative, also at the end of the teaching guide. It depends, but if your suggested answers or in the writing the whole teaching note you didn't cite anything, then you don't need to give any list of references. But if you do so, then you must give separately and at the end of the also teaching note. Well, those are the basic key for writing the teaching notes and writing the teaching case narrative. So some of you may be also interested to write short case. We call it compact case, but this case competition is not about compact case. But however, having said that, so compact case are very small short case within 3,000 words, but normal cases, those start from 5,000 words onward. So now let's say you already written the case and you submitted for revision or submitted for this case competition. Now it is very natural that you will get some review feedback. And usually what happens when you go for the case competition, so then after the competition is over, then the cases automatically go through the revision process and then it start the revision. So now reviewer will read your case and give you feedback. So there should be minimum 2 reviewer. It can be more than that, so it depends. So what you will do, so when you will get the email from the Emerald publisher or the editors, then they will ask you to resubmit your revised case. When you revise the case, you have to prepare this kind of table. And this table, you should include each and every single comment given by the reviewer. If you get 2 reviewers, then you have to highlight the comment from both reviewers one by one. Left side, you just copy paste reviewer comment, and the right side, you write how you address those review feedback. This is something not to be taken so lightly, because some reviewers, they are very strict, they are very particular. They will start reading this file before they start reading actually your case. So maybe many authors, they don't know that how important it is, so they take it lightly. I saw even some table, the author written what written, done, just done. It's very ridiculous. Don't say done. Or one sentence that this question is being addressed. No, you have to explain how you addressed, which part of your case it appears. So some authors, they're very clever. They write so detailed in this table that already reader or reviewer become impressed. So the key here, you cannot just take review feedback lightly. Show that you made effort, show that you taken it seriously. That create impression also in reviewer's mind. I have experienced that few times it happens, not only one time. The reviewer came back to me when I was handling particular cases and said me that, can you please help me to get back the again revised table from the case writer, the author? That means the table the author submitted, the reviewer was not happy because it was very simple, short sentences. Well, So before you submit, make sure you go to the EMCS website, and we have a very good website, very rich information there. So you can just see aims, editorial team, author guideline. This is very important, author guideline. And if you click here, you will see that there is a guideline how to write teaching case narrative, how to write teaching note. So please make sure that you read that before you start writing or before you submit. And aims and scope you need to read also. So this is basically for emerging market and decision focused or case dilemma oriented cases we prefer. I cannot say we do not have any descriptive case. There are some, but it is your luck also. If some editors they don't like it, I mean associate editor, most of us we go for decision making problem, this kind of cases. And when you're talking about case competition, so it is matter of you want to win the competition. So of course, try your best to do whatever you can to follow the rules and regulations properly. Some of my cases, you can find it here if anyone's interested. And I also have some talk before with Emerald. It is also on the YouTube. And having said that, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That was a really insightful presentation. Thank you. So just looking at the questions section. So again, if anyone's got any questions, I think we've got another 5 minutes of scheduled webinar time. So please do write any questions in the chat. We do have one, which is the protagonist always a person, or can it be about a company as a whole? Yeah, you can answer that. Thank you.
Okay, it's a good question actually. Protagonist has to be person. So when you're talking about overall company, it is actually not making the situation so particularly, appealing. So protagonist is basically a person. So this person is the person who is facing the problem. Let's say, for example, in the company, there can be hierarchy like, director, CEO, manager. So this protagonist doesn't need to be the CEO, doesn't need to be the owner. It can be just the manager or the manager of particular branch only. So this protagonist is the person who is facing the problem and who is the person who is thinking he or she must do something and has to take some action. So this is very important actually, to have a particular person to make the story more relevant and for the reader to understand and to visualize everything through the eye of that particular person or the protagonist. So yeah, it is preferably that it should be a person in general.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for that. I think that was the only one that we've not kind of answered. Oh, here we go. How about ethical issues? Oh, I'm sorry. So I'll pass the other one over. So the person who wrote ethical issues, can you talk a little bit more about what you mean, please? But I'll ask Dr. Farzana this one. Can the protagonist be an author as well?
Can be the protagonist the author, is it? Okay, right. Yes, protagonist can be the also, I mean, the case writer can be the part of the, this case issue, but there are two schools of thought. One school of thought, they said that it is actually not so much good because there can be biasness. So biasness meaning when I am the person who is, inside the company facing some problem and I'm the one writer. So there can be some biasness that I can create the writing style. I can write in such a way that can create that too much positive side or too much negative side. So another school of thought says that yes, it can be no problem as long the information is delivered neutrally. So this is something I cannot say yes or no completely. It depends. But both side you will find opinion. So one side will say yes, it is possible as long you're neutral. Another side, another school of thought, they can say that no, because it can create and lead the biasness. So yeah, so I'm sorry, I cannot say yes or no 100%. There is something in middle. So you will find both opinion actually.
Thank you. And I would just add to that as well, if you do, so I know that we have published some case studies where the protagonist has been listed as an author. We do within our wider Emerald author guidelines. We've got a page that talks about what it actually means to be an author. You have to have actually, had a significant input to the writing. So if you're not sure about that, if you could email either myself or Melissa Close, with some specific details, that's something that we could check with our rights team as well. Because as Dr. Farzana said, it's a tricky one to answer. So, kind of looking at it on a case-by-case basis might be the best way. And then someone has just said, what if the organisation doesn't want to be named, or are there any ethical issues with mentioning the company name?
Yeah, this is actually a very common problem. I think for the case writers, we all face this problem that many company, they give us the information, they allow us to write a case, but simultaneously they request that do not actually, mention my name or do not mention my company name. So we can disguise. So I think Gabby can tell well, but from my experience, the EMCS, we accept actually disguise cases, but in your consent letter you should give us the original company name, but you can tell there that you disguise the company name, you disguise the protagonist name because they requested so. So in conclusion, you should write the real case. It cannot be fictitious case. However, you can disguise. So when you're talking about disguise cases, this is actually how much you can disguise. So you can disguise actually your company name, you can disguise the protagonist name, but you have to be honest about maybe the age. If the original age was 36, you can also have the range between 35 to 40. You cannot make it 50. If the person protagonist really is a female, you cannot make it a male. So certain thing you have to keep it close to the realistic, and then you can discuss.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And kind of similar to the other question, this is quite a difficult question to answer kind of for all situations across the board, because it does, depend on kind of the reasons behind this. So again, if this is a problem that you're facing, you want to write a case study, again, do reach out to myself and Melissa Close. And as Dr. Farzana said, it's quite important that we as a publisher and the associate editor and editorial board know that it's a disguised case. We're not going to go and publish the organisation's name if we don't have permission to do that, but it's important that the people reviewing the case study understand kind of what that situation is. We're running over, but we'll answer the questions that have been written down. So someone has asked, how should I go about finding data for a case study? Should I interview my target person?
Case writing actually depends on how good you are in collecting the data. So you can have choices to make. One can be primary source, yes, interview based. Another can be secondary source. So most of the time, reviewers, editors, we prefer the case written based on the primary source, because primary source interview can give you more in-depth information. And you have to understand that one interview might not be enough. So when you're writing a teaching teaching guide, then you may need more information. So sometimes it happens that being the writer also, sometimes I interviewed the person maybe 4 or 5 times even. Again, when you go for revision round, your reviewer can ask you something to add on, and then you may need to again interview the person. So it depends. Also, you will find a lot of cases based on secondary data, but those cases written on plenty of information available. Not all case company, they give a lot of information that you get it actually published form. So you can have both. You can interview and you can have the secondary data. You can combine both to make it more rich. So that's, I think that's the question, right?
Yeah, perfect. Thank you so much. And then there's one final question. Oh, sorry, they keep coming in. If we don't get to all of them, because I'm conscious we're over, I can share these with Dr. Farzana afterwards, and we can get back to you. So someone asked, is ethical board approval required for the cases? So if I can just take this one quickly, where primary research has been conducted, we do require case study consent to be given. So this ensures that we know the organisation, the protagonist, is happy for Emerald Publishing as an organisation to publish this content. The details of that are on the EMCS author guidelines page. There isn't a specific ethical board. So again, if you've got any concerns, you're writing about something that you think there will be kind of ethical concerns, please do reach out, again, to myself and Melissa, and we can manage that on a case-by-case basis. Can you do interviews with more than one person? I will let you take this one, but I think you're going to say yes. Please do.
Yes, of course, you can interview more than one person. No problem at all, as long as you get the information. The key is here to get the information. So no problem if you want to interview a few person is fine, as long as you get your information to write the case and to respond to the reviewers, the questions. So that's the main key here. It can be one, it can be two, it can be three. Of course, you can interview more than one.
Brilliant. And then I think we need to wrap this up just now. Someone has just asked, can cases be imaginary or hypothetical? So no, all of the cases do need to be based on real people, real organisations, real dilemmas. And even where case studies, the organisations need to be anonymised, they still need to be true. So as Dr. Quoquab has said, you can maybe change the age, the name of the organisation, but the person still has to exist. The organisation still has to exist. The dilemma that the case study focuses on has to have happened to a real person. So we don't accept imaginary or, hypothetical, this could have happened, but it didn't. And we find that students don't engage, with case studies where that happens. As the publisher, we want to represent real, business dilemmas. Right, there are a few more questions coming in, but I'm very conscious of time and we've run over. So I will get these questions, I will share them with you afterwards, if that's okay, Doctor. And we can, between us, we will make sure we get through to everyone's questions. The session is recorded and you will be sent a recording of the session and the slides. If you can ask about that as well. Brilliant. Okay. Thank you so much. I just want to say thank you again, and sorry for any confusion at the beginning there. Thank you so much for joining us today, Dr. Quoquab, and thank you, Disha, for running the session.
No problem at all. So glad we could get Dr. Farzana in, and everything's all well. Thank you, Dr. Farzana. Every time I attend your session, I think I learn something new. So yeah, lovely to be a part of the session. Thank you so much.
And thanks for having me here.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, everyone, and good luck with your case submissions. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye.